So welcome to our class today. We want to look at information communication technology. This is December 2021. We'll answer all the questions. So we shall start looking at question number one. Question number one says, consider the following data that exist in a spreadsheet format. So we have a spreadsheet there with column headers, item number, title, supplied, cover price, discount, extended, and we have item number 1 to item number 11. So required, explain how you would format the column cover price to display values on the right hand side with 2 decimal places. So this is the procedure. Then I shall show you how to do it practically using a new spreadsheet program. I'll use Excel. So first of all, you need to select the column. In this case, we want to select the column cover price. So that is the column where we need to do the format. So we select the column and then we click the header just to ensure that it is highlighted horizontally, sorry, vertically. Then we shall right click or go to the format cell. There we shall see a group of cells or format cell. Then we shall see numbers. Then after numbers we shall format. So practically I have this is my blank Excel sheet. So here are my columns. So I have column A to F. So suppose I want to do it for, so this is a direct screenshot of our question paper. Suppose I want to format our column A, I'll click column A. So as you can see, it has highlighted all the values in these columns. And in our case, it was supposed to be F. So just click like that, then it will highlight. Then under home, in our home ribbon there, we have home. So we have this group of fonts. We have clipboard, font, alignment, and number. So we shall go to number. Then we have this arrow. It shows that these more options for number format. So we just click that. Then it displays this format cell. So we have number, alignment, font, border, fill, protection. So under this category, I want us to go to number. So you can see we have a sample here. So we have decimal places. We are told to use 2. You can use 1000 separator, but in this case we are not required to use that. Again, if you are to get the currency right, then you just go to currency. So here we can get the symbols for currency, but we really needed to get these decimal places. Now next to numbers is the next icon, that is alignment. So if you click alignment, we have 2 types of alignment. So we have horizontal alignment and we have also vertical alignment. So what we are needed to do is to set our horizontal alignment to right. So just click the drop down arrow, then you select right. So now you formatted your column there as was required here. So we chose the number tab, and then in the format, that dialog box is what was displayed when I was doing that, and we were in number. Then in the left panel we got different categories of numbers, and we chose numbers. Remember, we had text, we had currency, we picked on number, and we also selected 2 decimal places where I was showing you. Then we also saw the alignment tab. So in alignment tab we navigated downwards and we were able to choose right, center, or left, but we chose right because that was what was expected of us. So we can choose also horizontal alignment or vertical alignment. So we did the horizontal alignment and then we did OK. Then that was it. So this is the procedure as we've seen. I did it there practically. Then let's go to the next question now. The next question is asking, the discount column needs to be calculated to display 20% discount if the supplied item costs 650 shillings or higher, and 15% discount if an item costs less than 650. Explain how to achieve this. So this is our sheet. Still, we are still working on this same spreadsheet. So we want to calculate or to input a formula that will enable this column here, the discount column, to calculate a discount of 20%, but we have a condition. So if the condition is that if our column, or if the discount is above 650, then it should calculate 20% of the discount. Otherwise, it should do 15%. So now, how are we going to do this? So we are going to use an if statement. So if statement is a statement that gives conditions that must be met by the formula or by the group of text that follows it. So in our case, we have our discount in column E2. If you check on the first discount for Shaka, it is 135.8. The specific address for that cell is E2. So we shall use that one, and then we shall copy the formula to the rest of the cells. So we shall say if E2, and in that case, if E2 is 135.8. So we shall say if E2 is greater than or equal to 650, comma, then what should the computer do? It should calculate, or it should multiply E2 by 20%. So that's what we are saying, E2 times 20%. Then we put a comma. So this comma just simply means, because we have only two conditions here, so the comma will just mean that anything that is not that, or anything that is outside that bracket, the computer will multiply it by 15%. So that's why we are saying comma E2 times 15%. So anything which is not within that range, the computer will multiply it by 15%. So this is how our formula will look like. If, open the bracket, E2 is greater than less than 600, is greater than or equal to 650, sorry, then in quotes you put, or in bracket, somebody can put bracket E2 times 20%, comma, open bracket, E2 times 15%. So that is a formula. Again, another person could decide to use a function which is also accepted and will produce the same results. The next question says the extended column. So in our spreadsheet, again, we have a column called extended. So we are told that the extended column needs to contain the cost of the items purchases after the discount have been calculated. Explain how to achieve this. So remember, here we have the cover price, but we have the discount again. So it means that if Shaka makes some purchases, he or she will not pay 679, because here she's given a discount of 135. So how are we going to achieve this so that we get the extended price? So we just simply say that the extended price is the same as the cover price minus discount, because this cover price is inclusive of the discount that is allowed or discount that is given. So it will be, in our case, we are going to use cell addresses. Remember, do not use the exact values, use cell addresses. So we are going to say equals, all formulas begin with an equal sign. So equals D2 minus E2. And what is D2? D2 is the cell address for the discount of Shaka. And sorry, D2 is the cover price for Shaka. Then E2 is the discount that was awarded. So that difference will give us the extended price. Then question number B, by stating an example in each case, explain the following cloud computing models. So here we have two cloud computing models. The first model is IaaS. This simply is a cloud computing model where users can rent virtualized computing resources over the internet. For example, you're running a company, you need somewhere to store the data which the company values so much. They cannot afford to lose them in case of any emergency. So they can, at a fee, hire or rent a space in the over the internet. So these resources include things like virtual machines, storage, as we've said, networking components. So in this model, users have more control over this infrastructure compared to other cloud models like SAS that we are going to look at next. So you rent a space in a virtualized computing resource over the internet, but again, you can still use it. You can still control how they are being used. You can still control how the memory is being managed over the internet. You can still control how your networking components are secured. So you have at least some control over this infrastructure. Now that is not like the SAS. In SAS clouding model, the users access this software application over the internet on a fee. So maybe it depends on this on the company or the service provider. So this software is hosted and maintained by this third-party service provider. So the user does not do anything because it is a software. The third-party provider will install, will maintain, will update this as long as the agreement is still being met and the payment are still being made as agreed by the argument. So in these two models of cloud computing, we see that IaaS specifically deals with the infrastructure, while SaaS deals majorly with software applications. So in software applications, it is very difficult to allow the customers or those people who have paid for this service to control it because they are in a virtual space as opposed to IaaS. So question C says, discuss the process of handling an interrupt that occurs during an execution of a program. So first of all, we need to know what is an interrupt. An interrupt is just some disruption that occurs during the execution of a program. We know that the execution of a program happens in the CPU, but it is being controlled by the operating system. So anything that will make the process not to move seamlessly or that will interrupt the swapping in and out of a process is called an interrupt. So the first process that happens during an interrupt is what we call interrupt generation. So when an interrupt occurs, when there is something that has prevented the process from proceeding with execution, then this interrupt can be generated by, let's say, an hardware or maybe a software or input or output device or any timers within the operating system that are not working efficiently. Then there must be what we call a system call that is made. So this system call is made to the operating system to alert the operating system that there are some processes that need some services and they cannot get it. So an interrupt can be generated by the hardware and then even by the software, and it is in form of a system call. Then 2 is what we call interrupt request or IRQ. So once the call has been made, the system call has been made by the hardware or the software, the signal is then passed to the CPU that to make the CPU aware that an interrupt has occurred and it needs attention, so that the CPU can now get the attention of the operating system about the interrupt. Then we have what we call interrupt acknowledgement. So what happens after the CPU has been made aware of an interrupt that has occurred? So now the CPU acknowledges the interrupt request by sending another signal. We call it acknowledgement signal to what we call interrupt controller. So interrupt controller is just another hardware within the operating system. It's the function of the interrupt controller is just to manage and prioritize interrupts from various resources, so that there are some interrupts that might have higher priority compared to others. So they are the first ones to be given attention. Then after acknowledgement, we have saving current state. So before the CPU can start processing that interrupt that has just occurred, it needs to save the current state of the interrupted process. Remember, before that interrupt came in, there was a process that was in a running state. It was being processed by the CPU. So the CPU needs to save that state. We have 5 states. We talk about waiting state, running state. All those ones are states that that processes go through when they are being processed by the CPU. So then we have what we call interrupt handler invocation. So now the CPU looks for that appropriate interrupt handler routine based on the type of interrupt that has occurred. We have different types of interrupt. Now each interrupt has a corresponding handler routine that knows how to deal with that specific interrupt. So the CPU searches, or the CPU looks for that appropriate interrupt handler for that particular process. And then lastly, the interrupt is executed by that interrupt handler that was seeked by the CPU. After that, then the CPU can now resume interrupted processes. Remember, that process that had to wait for the interrupt to be processed can proceed. Then question D says, explain the following terms as used in operating system. So the first term there is thread, and then we have internal fragmentation and then a shell. So let's start by looking at a thread. So a thread is just the smallest unit of execution within a process in an operating system. Sometimes you'll find in some places they are being called lightweight processes. They share the same memory as RAM as the processes. So threads, they can communicate more easily and effectively. Why? Because they can directly access shared data. So operating system always process, or the CPU always process these processes in forms of threads, because threads are easy to process. They are the smallest unit of execution within the process in an operating system. Then we have what we call internal fragmentation. So what is internal fragmentation? Remember, we can have one big memory that is being used by the CPU. Now, suppose I have a 2 GB memory, and a process that is to run on that memory is 1.97. It means that there is some 0.03 GB memory that is not being used by this process. That wasted memory, if suppose we had very many processes wasting maybe 0.03 GB of memory, then you will find out that a quite big chunk of memory is always being wasted. So that wastage of memory within a memory block or within a partition due to this allocation of memory is what we call internal fragmentation. So internal fragmentation is just the wastage of memory within a memory block or partition due to allocation of memory in large chunks than actually needed by a process or a program. So because of that internal fragmentation, there is a way we shall see of reducing that wastage or that chunks by simply partitioning the memory or fragmenting the memory into smaller bits. Then we have what we call a shell. So a shell is always a command line interface, and a command line interface is an interface that uses commands, or a graphical user interface. That is an interface that uses graphics. For example, the interface of the computer that I'm using right now. It provides a way for users to interact with the operating system and execute various command programs. So that window, that opening that you use to interact with your computers, maybe through graphics or maybe through commands, is what we call a shell.